Welcome to the Foundation's Conversations at Home program. I'm Briana Rodriguez from Backstage. Before we speak to our guest today, I just want to let you guys know that the Foundation has set up a COVID relief fund in order to support thousands of union performers who are going through tough times. Since March, thanks to your donations, the Foundation has given over $6.1 million in emergency aid to more than 6,600 performers and their families. If you're a SAG-AFTRA member and you need help, please ask. And if you can help, please give. Information can be found in the description of this video, and thank you all for your support. Now, without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce Lily Rabe and Hamish Linklater from Tell Me Your Secrets. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you both holding up?
Pretty good. I mean, in what regard are you asking? In terms of like the weekend?
Yeah, I mean, or more just the state of the world. I feel like we're in a perpetual just reassessment period all the time. So yes. I wanted to see how you guys are doing.
How are you holding up is a nice thing, because I do find that when you sort of, it's hard to kind of check in with people and say, how are you? Yeah, so that's a nice way of.
Yeah. Well, awful. But that being said,
but also
we really can't complain compared to a lot of folks out there.
Yeah, I mean, the Foundation has really done some great work in making sure that union members are okay. But we're coming up, I think, on like a year of COVID now, where it's kind of taken over our lives. And I just, from an artist perspective, you guys are both, creative people. How have you two managed to stay motivated and inspired in this period of time, in ways that actors can sort of draw from themselves as when they watch this?
I was pregnant at the beginning of all of this, and we had a baby in June. And there is something, it's like our baby hasn't met anyone, or, there's something about, I have thought about that when I think about work a bit, that there's like a gestation period happening. And I feel that we have been able to sort of spend more time than we would normally have to talk about ideas and sort of dream things up. And I actually, there have been parts of this experience of this time that have felt very creative in a way that's just different, because it's so much about, that's why I talked about the pregnancy, because there's something about you just feel like you're trying to sort of, have things that you can create that hopefully when can be birthed once the world is a safer place for them to exist in.
Right. Hamish, what about you? How are you staying engaged with your creativity these days?
Well, I'm a little bit more of an extrovert than Lily is, and so I'm a little clawing at the walls a little bit of or to keep the womb. I'm ready for the gestation to be over. Ta-da! Still here. Got a beard. Grew a beard, but I think I always hated doing self-taping with Lily, but now there's no choice. And
you didn't like doing self-taping, period. It wasn't with Lily. You just don't like to make a self-tape.
I just think when I'm auditioning for something and they hear my reader sounds like, hey, blah, blah, the Lily Rabe voice, then the chances are they're going to be like, who would be really good for the role of the main lady? That reader in that tape. So, anyway, that's been good. I've gotten a lot easier to self-tape. And
I think you've been doing a lot of auditions.
Well, I'm just doing self-tapes of projects that don't exist. It's sort of like we're doing a lot of classical play self-tapes for ourselves, for our children in the future, which we'll keep producing in quarantine.
That's amazing. I cannot wait. I hope those get released on a library somewhere on YouTube where everyone can enjoy them. But I want to dig a little bit into your present work. Tell me your secret. Tell me your secrets. I was going to say, tell me all your secrets, but it's just tell me your secrets. I caught a couple of episodes, and you two both have some really intense psychology to reckon with and wrestle with throughout the show. Could you tell us a little bit about your characters, and as much as you can reveal about how they are potentially connected?
That was for you.
I think, something that both of our characters, I don't want to speak for Hamish. I keep bumping this with my knee. I'm sorry.
She has huge knees.
There's such a theme of the show is really this question of redemption, this question of reinvention, second chances. Are we deserving of them? And even if we are deserving of them, is that actually something that's possible? So both of our characters separately are, I think, facing some version of that. And then the question is, will they ever, will their sort of course ever collide? Right?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Yeah. Can the leopard change his or her spots? I think is sort of a question. And what's fun, I think, for an audience watching along is like, they'll find themselves rooting for people they didn't think they would root for, and hoping that sort of darker characters can find their way to the light. But, the darkness has a very strong magnetism in the show. That's the end of my answer.
Lovely. I'm curious, both of you guys have talked before about your sort of different ways of approaching the craft, but once you're, ready and on board to commit to a character, what's the first place that you guys start in terms of building this person who you're going to portray on screen? And I'd be interested in hearing the similarities and differences between your approaches.
I have a pretty simple way of going about. Which is always just like, is the person trying to make positive choices that'll be playable as you're going forward, and so no matter how dark the character may be, psychology-wise, as long as I'm not sitting there trying to, if I'm sitting there thinking, what is the most fascinating way I can twist my mustache? I don't think I'll do a terribly good job. But if the parts are as well written as these parts are, then that the effect you have on the audience is going to be partly the audience's responsibility, and your responsibility is going to be to your character doing the appropriate thing in the scene. So that's sort of a bad answer. And
I thought it was a good answer.
Really?
Yeah.
But you do something. But what do you do though?
I would say something that I'm really interested in as just a human being, and I think it's also where I often sit with in the sort of process of playing a character, and certainly in the playing of this role, is the idea that really two or more things can be true at the same time. And sort of leaning into that whenever I can. And, I played a part once where I had a phone call with a bunch of like executives that I'd never met, who I was shooting on location, and they were making a call to talk about whether my ponytail was making my character seem less likable than they wanted her to be. That something about I think maybe we should soften her hair because then she'll feel more likable. She has had that affair. And I thought, what the sort of, I guess what I'm really interested in is the opposite of that. That it's not a question of good or bad, or it's like getting into the muck and getting into the murk and getting into the gray area, and letting both things, both the good and the bad, and your good choices and your bad choices, get oxygen and sort of exist side by side and see where that takes you. And I had such an opportunity to do that here. you know, I love watching shows with unreliable narrators, and I really liked playing one.
Yeah. I mean, both of you guys have a pretty extensive theater background, and it sounds, correct me if I'm wrong, but from what you guys are saying, that you guys take a much more internal approach than like the traditional outside in approach to a character building. But what would you guys say you sort of land on where you start there with?
Well, something I would say, and now I'm feeling talking too much.
You haven't been. I've been blathering the whole time.
Okay.
You just kick the table with your delicate knees.
I would say something about outside in for this particular role that was really great, which was that our before we shot the pilot, our director said she wanted me to have the body of Tyler Durden, of Brad Pitt in Fight Club. And I had just had a baby and I was breastfeeding, and there was not a lot of time before we started shooting, but I love a physical challenge. It's something that really sparks me and lights me up. And so I said, yeah, I'll start working out the minute we get off this call, and I won't stop until we're shooting. I just need someone to teach me how to build muscle in that way, because I had come from sort of longer, leaner muscle building and things. And this was like, actually just take up space, get bigger. And so that was a really wonderful way into Emma, because I think for Emma, Karen takes up a lot of space with her spirit, but physically was, you know, not particularly. I think there's a softness to her physically. And then Emma, her spirit is sort of trapped and is actually taking up less space. And so what she's doing is trying to get as physically strong as she possibly can to sort of weather this new world and her new reality. And so actually having that outside in experience of just getting my body as big as I possibly could and as strong as I possibly could. So I would say for me, inside out, outside in, probably both, but also it really depends on the role. And that was such a big part of it for this. And I was really grateful for it, because it was like building armor.
Yeah, I'd say for Lily, definitely like the dresses and then the pants that she's worn playing Shakespeare in the park. Like if you see there are these pants rolls for the ladies. And she's played a lot of them, but each of them are so distinct from one another. And I think she does build like an outer thing and that inner, and I think it's surprising probably to her. It certainly is to me as a viewer and someone who gets to act with her, the inner things that come out of her and fill in that space. So I think the inside for I don't know how much she pokes it and prods it and says, come on. But she's got like this wild inner flora fauna that grows into the terrarium, depending on the design of it.
Thanks. Love that. And correct me if I'm wrong, but this is like the 4th or 5th time you guys have worked together. You mentioned Shakespeare in the Park, which is what?
At least, I would say at least. But it would take too long to count. That would be boring viewing. But yes.
Well, we're on to the second hand of counting in terms of collaboration. We've used up a hand of fingers so far.
So awesome. But I want to hear a little bit about what you guys feel makes a good scene partner, and then what you guys enjoy about each other as scene partners.
Hamish is, and I felt this way having seen him act before I knew him. Fear is not, it's not a part of, it's not in his DNA in terms of how he acts, and both physically and sort of, and emotionally, all of his choices are fearless, and he's never thinking about what the audience is going to be thinking. And that in that is such freedom. So being his scene partner, and he is someone that I know really well now, but even now, knowing him as well as I do, the surprise of being opposite him is it's just never ending. And I don't know that there is anything better to want in a scene partner. And also I trust him. And also I know he'll tell me the truth, like really. And I love that. I love the real deal truth.
Yeah, I mean, the great thing about working with Lily, and I think with that, all the actors that I think I really enjoy is that sort of, you feel like they're always, that's a small glass that you do. It's actually a normal size mason jar, but
yeah, hydration is not important to me at all.
Fear staying on script, but all of a sudden, because of the foreshortening, that mason jar looks like you were about to wear it. Sort of, Lily has, like, you cut down a great a redwood, and you get that core there in the middle of it. I mean, it keeps going in and in and in and in, and that's where it's young, and that's where it's true, right there in the center, and it's grown out from there. Lily is always operating, like finding her way back to that inner true core. Is that true? Does that feel true? Is that the story? Is that the character? And I always feel in her eyes, and when she's looking at me in a scene, that she's asking that on some molecular level, that question, and is curious about the answer to it. So that's interesting. That's fun with an artist. Good timing, nice dancer, also good for scene partner.
I was going to ask, actually, Lily, I know that you trained as a dancer for quite some time. Do you find that comes in to your sort of physicality when you perform? And if so, how? And then how specifically for Emma?
I do feel that way. And I think that something I value so much about the dance training that I had was just the sort of rigor and discipline of it, and the fact that you always are going back to the bar, no matter, you always start at the bar. It's just, you have to warm up your muscles. It's what you have to do every class. It doesn't, and I think that learning that from such a young age was really so valuable. And I love sort of constantly reminding myself of that. And I also think, in the theater, because you can't rely on a close-up, that you are acting with the whole body, and I don't think that means that anything is bigger. It's just that everything is connected, that you're, to me, this idea of that you have to make bigger choices on a stage, I don't agree with that at all. I just think it's like the choice has to travel to your toes, in whatever way it does. And that's something that I find valuable in any job that I'm doing, whether there is a close up or not. I mean, I guess, yeah, I would, is that an answer?
It was an answer.
I would agree.
That's the other thing I could always, another great thing about acting with Hamish is if I can, there's just like a flicker of what, and he'll say, well, go do more, try that, there's no sugarcoating. And
there's nothing but sugar on my coat. I have a purely glycerin jerkin. It's the sweetest honey out there.
Well, I think it's sweet honey,
but wonderful. That was wonderful.
He's basically a glazed donut in this coat. He's so covered in sugar. Hamish, is there a piece of your training that you felt you were consistently returning to on Tell Me Your Secrets, and maybe a way that surprised you?
Well, I mean, I have two answers, and I'll start with the more boring one. But, it's interesting, like these he's a serial predator, and the big thing about those people is their grooming techniques. And we talk so much about grooming that really became such a part. It wasn't when we were shooting the show quite as much in the zeitgeist, but I certainly would notice myself like, oh, I'm trying to be charming to this scene partner that I'm with to find out where Amy Brenneman's daughter is. But I think at the same time, and so I would like think, wow, how is Hamish charming sometimes when he's, I don't know, trying to get someone else to pick up the bar tab. But these guys he wants to be caught. I mean, that is sort of like the interesting, so the scenes always had a two-sided thing to them, which is, yes, I would draw on my training of trying to be a charming actor, but also my true training of being a humble human, which is like, all right, calm down. You're all gonna die. That was the boring answer. The true answer is I drew on my training of trying to be a professional athlete. And I think you can see in the way he walks that he was never going to make it onto a basketball court, but he wanted to. Because, I mean, 6'3", got to be real skilled.
And you are very athletic.
I'm ultra athletic. You can't tell it. Not from a single character I've ever played.
That's not true. Anyone who has seen Hamish and Shakespeare in the Park can tell. Like when you walk into your first rehearsal of Hamish of any Shakespeare play, the prop guys are like, we got the we got the tallest ladder, and then we extended it so that it could be even. You can climb up the side of this wall. You can't. You're not supposed to, but we found a way that you can, Hamish. So
my training as a fake firefighter, failed fake firefighter, I draw on that a lot.
You definitely bring physicality into the role. I'm not going to give too much away, but there's a scene where you sort of lay on your back and put your legs in the air. And I thought,
I don't recall. Take your word for it.
I thought that was a brilliant use of physicality in that scene.
Don't remember.
So I want to go back a little bit in terms of your sort of theater training as well. What advice would you guys have for actors who are more experienced on stage and are thinking of making the switch to the screen in the coming months? Hopefully, we'll get back opportunities to go back to the stage, but if that's further down the line and there's an actor who's thinking of making the foray onto the small screen, what advice would you give them?
Well, a quick thing I would say is I don't know a single stage actor in America who's like, the screen is not for me. I mean, if they did say it, that would be their line reading, and the screen would be like, that's a deal. Okay, I'll take that bargain. Good day, sir. My experience is that everyone's trying to have a healthy balance of stage work and work that's paying the bills, but also that's you want to have both. You want to have both things. Right now, there's just one thing, and that's like this. So. How do you turn your knobs? How do you turn your knobs? Your volume contrast knobs.
Oh gosh. I just think there's it's such a privilege to be able to do both, and then to be able to go back and forth between both is such a privilege. And I think they just kind of continue to inform
Yeah.
one another. So if the opportunity now presents itself to anyone to sort of make that shift, to do it, and to know that they have everything they need, more than everything they need to do it.
I've never been more curious. I mean, it is like a really interesting, like I think we don't relish watching ourselves on camera afterwards. You know, it's wonderful doing a play because you're carried away and the performance is carried by the audience.
Well, that's
and if that's where your heart is, this is a very lonely time, because I mean, even now when you're acting in like a Zoom reading or something like that, you're right there. I mean, you got to like close off that video or something. But a lot of film actors and TV actors that I admire so much, I know watch playback all the time. After each take they go and they say, oh yeah, if I just tilted there, it's going to be more real. It's going to tell the story more honestly.
And I love watching playback.
Yeah.
But I was just, as you were, that's such that's something I miss so much about the theater, is that feeling of being able to do it again the next night. Because I do love, like, I love watching playback. I love watching an early cut of something as it's coming together. I think that I kind of love doing ADR a lot of the time. But the minute it's locked, like that word just sends a shiver down my spine, because then the process is over, and then it's really, and the great thing about doing a play is it's never done. You get until the last performance, you can continue to be in that process, and that is something that is, so all along the way, I love, you know, I'm so okay watching, but then watching like a final product is a completely different, and as Hamish said, not necessarily something I relish, because it's, yeah.
Yeah, I love that you take playback and incorporate it into your process, because as Hamish said, not everyone likes to do that, but it's
not. Sometimes it's not. It's sort of. I'm certainly not someone who's like, that's part of, I have to have that no, but if the opportunity presents itself or it lends itself, depending on what the role is, if there are certain things, or sometimes right in the beginning with physicality, you're like, can I see some playback? I want to see the level of X, or, so I think for me, it is sort of case specific too, but it feels so different watching in that capacity, rather than watching something that's, signed, sealed, delivered.
But if there were a silver lining for a theater actor during this time, why not? And you say, I hate looking at myself on screen. Well, you're on screen all the time during this time. Maybe you step into a place that would otherwise feel uncomfortable. But right now, that's what we got.
Yeah.
You look at it, maybe.
Awesome. I want to go back a little bit to both of you guys' beginnings of your careers. How did you find your first agents?
We got a good one?
Well, yeah. I mean,
he's shifting he's repositioning.
This is going to be a good one. I'm excited.
No, it was that director who, summer stock director who took a shine to me, and I shone back, and she introduced me to the Fifi Oscard agency, and that was wonderful. Lily?
I did something. I think it's different now.
You did Northwestern showcases.
I did. It was called New Leagues at the time, and I don't know if it's still called New Leagues, but anyway, and it was sort of. I think it's changed where it was like 10 actors and 10 musical theater actors, or like meaning 10 non-musical theater and 10 musical theater actors would go to New York And then like in the spring leading up to it, it was sort of a class that we were doing. Yeah, 2 seconds. I know, but we're coming 2 seconds. I love you. Bye. Sorry.
I feel like you guys rehearsed that because it was so perfectly timed.
Hold on 1 sec.
Give her chocolate.
Talk about new leads.
Okay. Yeah, my story was so much much better for how to meet an agent. Summer stuff. Summers. And then, Lily's is, that's actually the responsible way you go to grad school. You put together a good classical and comic monologue.
So I would be remiss not to ask for this audience, how did you get your SAG card?
Oh, it was either a commercial for NYU dental implants or for, no, I don't know. I don't know how I got my SAG card. I think maybe it was for the movie Groove. I feel like I was cut out of a lot of things. Maybe I got it for things I was cut out of. But otherwise, the movie Groove, that was in 2000 at Sundance. When did you get your SAG card? Mona Lisa's smile. That's where Lily Rabe got hers.
It's true. That's where I got my SAG card.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And good on you for knowing, Hamish.
Answer for me.
I know most of her answers. Let me see.
Right. This is actually my last question. Maybe you can answer it for Lily and for yourself.
Totally.
But what performance, is a little big one, but what performance should every actor see and why, in your opinion?
Everything that Denzel Washington is in. If you can see Denzel Washington on stage, you got to do it. It's the best. It's the best thing you got going. It's just phenomenal. Best performance. If you were going to tell someone one performance, what performance should an actor view? I did like a Pacino, De Niro, Heat, Irishman thing. Although Pesci is the best.
Panic in Needle Park, I love.
There you go.
The best performance.
Well, just like a thing.
It's not the best.
If you said
a performance every actor should see and why, but doesn't need to be the best, but can be the best if you want it to be.
Oh gosh, there's so. And
also the thing about Lily and Miss Stevens is
that me and Miss Stevens would be the one.
No, but honestly, it's so like just watching a really nakedly funny and poignant performance. You can also just bring all of yourself, let it go away, and that's really your job.
Thanks.
You're welcome. I would recommend the performance of Hamish Linklater in this interview.
There is a movie called Bright Star.
Oh.
And Ben Wishaw's performance, the entire movie, but Ben Wishaw's performance in that to me is like watching actual magic. And I would tell everyone to watch that movie and to watch that performance.
What about his performance as Paddington?
Also his performance as Paddington, truly.
Yeah. All the performances in Paddington 1 and 2. Those movies are so good.
Yeah. I also, Claire Foy in The Crown is one of my, that's not a movie.
It doesn't need to be a movie. It's just a performance.
Like jumping into the ocean, watching her performance in that. Because it's just, there's no end to it. There's no edges. It's just like so boundless. And
I love that. All of those are ones that I actually haven't heard before. And I've asked this question many a time.
Well, it took me a lot. My brain was like in the hall and I was trying to get it back. So.
Well, then you got a birthday coming up. So that's important. I think
it's birthday tomorrow.
We have a birthday tomorrow.
Yeah.
That takes precedence. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us, answering some questions. Please, everyone, go watch Tell Me Your Secrets, February 19th on
Yes.
Amazon.
Yes.
Go check it out. And thank you guys. This was such a pleasure.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you
I'm
so
so sorry
much.
for disappearing, but thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
That's good television.